This is Surviving the Music Industry.
That sounds sick.
I didn't think about how that sounded.
What's up, all my quarantinis, all my quarantines, my quarantine pals? Welcome to Surviving the Music Industry. I'm Brandon Harrington. This is my podcast. I had to kind of relocate everything from my little attic on Music Row to my bedroom. So we like to call this podcast SMI in the bedroom. I'm the only one in the bedroom right now. Do have a life partner. We share the bedroom. I don't think she even knows I have a podcast, to be honest with you. But this is where we're at. SMI, welcome, everybody. It's got a unique conversation with Brett James, songwriter. If you're in the know what's going on there. But I hope everybody's doing well. I mean, I don't want to make light or fun of the situation, but I got to make light or fun of the situation. We're quarantines. All my quarantinis out there. It's a weird state of mind, right? We're so used to it was raging all night and over the weekend, and now we're stuck watching Friends and doing puzzles. It's the weirdest thing in my mindset, in my mind. So I'm sure it is for everybody else. But you know what? We're making the best of a horrible situation. But there's a lot of people still not taking this thing seriously, right? I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, we always make fun of California, right? It's those people on the other side that kind of do things a little bit differently. But it seems like they got it going on. Maybe they don't have like the worst cases in America. New York, Tennessee, to Seattle, New Orleans, Louisiana. So, I mean, they don't have it that bad. But, I mean, at least they're taking it seriously. Every time you go outside, put on a mask. That's like what they're mandating. And then if you want to get essentials, we urge you not to go get those essentials. But if you have to, put on a mask. They're telling people don't go get the essentials. I don't know. Tennessee's just kind of like dragging their feet on everything. It's one of the worst states. I mean, just a metro city. I mean, we've already had so many people die. It's really depressing. And I can get there, people. You know this. I mean, we're missing John Bryan. That was a toughie. Joe Diffie was a big personal toughie. But then when John Bryan went down, it was just kind of like, come on, people. Let's take care of ourselves. Stay indoors. Put on your mask. Wash your hands. You know, I truly believe you got to go get those essentials. Be creative to get those essentials for whatever that's worth. Maybe there's a neighbor or something that you guys can barter with. I'm always a fan of the barter system. I always have been. I kind of wish we could go back to the Dark Ages. Not for the Dark Plague or the Black Plague that happened that first time around. I guess we're in the Black Plague Part 2. But, I don't know. Just be creative when you're going to get stuff. Don't be idiots. I mean, there's so many people. It's so crazy. Like, when you go out and get those essentials, you kind of realize who's taking this thing seriously, who's not. And it's usually the people wearing the rain jackets in the middle of spring when it's not raining. And they got their hoods up and they got a mask on. And then you look like, you look at Trevor and Frank and then Samantha and Tiffany and Kimberly over here just spring breaking in Walmart, getting everything ready to go. They're the reason that this thing spreads. Tiffany. That's where I'm at. I wish, I don't know. I feel like we need to take this a little bit more seriously. I mean, what do I know? Seriously, what do I know? I just know, especially what some big wigs are saying, smarter people than I. I mean, I don't consider myself an influencer of any kind. I just like to have gnarly conversations with people. But there's this thing. Just stay inside. What's the worst going to happen? You're going to hate the people that you're kind of living with. I know people that kicked out their roommates because they're not taking it seriously enough. That's a little funny to me for what that's worth. I guess if you're locked in a co-living partner marriage situation, that might be a little tricky. But I kind of said this before. This is going to be the true test of how strong your relationship is, being stuck together this long and this amount of time. I just want you guys just take it a little bit more seriously for what that's worth. I think you still got to get the essentials. But don't be stupid. That's just kind of where I'm at. You guys want to talk about it at SMI Podcast? Of course, smipodcast.com. for that website email stuff. I don't know what's going on. Brett James and I had an awesome conversation. Enjoyed the sit down phoner chat situation. Phoners are still a new thing to me. Get that pacing right. Still trying to make it a conversation, but it's hard because you can't read one another over the phone. But we got to it. We got to the thing. We talked about the life of Brett James all the way to the climb, him realizing some shit. Okay, so probably one thing I might need to say. It's almost like for the Gen Pop, mostly, you need to know who Brett James is. Songwriter, producer, publisher. I mean, he's got the WPP thing kind of going on. Writer, producer, publisher. I mean, he's got songs from Cowboy Casanova, Jesus Take the Wheel, I mean, tons of others. It's so hard, like, just to pick, like, one or two of those songs, but, I mean, cuts from Kenny Chesney to, I'm looking at over the list, anything kind of jumps out at me. Little Big Town, Bon Jovi, that's a big one, Backstreet Boys, Minnie McCready, I always loved Minnie McCready. And then Winona Judd, that's always close to my heart. Lone Star, Jody Messina, and there's a bunch of other big ones too. Jake Owen. I don't know. The guy's he's basically Elvis. He's got 1 million of the platinum plaques in his wall, Hall of Fame in his own house, I'm sure. He's the big to-do. He's the big thing. He's one of the biggie bigs in Nashville, in the Nashville songwriting community. And I think kind of all over the spectrum of writers in the music world as far as that's concerned. He's got the chops to back it up, obviously. He was an artist in the early 90s. He's charted. He's did the thing. He got dropped, started questioning himself. He comes from a family of doctors. He was going to work in the family business. But life intervened. The creative God sprinkled some sawdust over him and said, nope, we're not done with you yet. It was a cool sit-down conversation to get into it. And, of course, I guess the big reason why he's here, he's got an EP out. It's kind of leading up to the big thing, to the Biggie Big album. He mentioned in conversation coming out in the summer, but for right now, you can enjoy I Am Now. It's his newest EP. Any of the streaming platforms, you can get it. That's where you can get it. You guys know how to do it. It's elder millennial speaking to you. Go to Spotify, iTunes, whatever else is out there. Whatever your jam is, that's where you can get the jam. I Am Now. It's got some tracks on it. If you're into soul, he calls it a Nashville soul. There's horn sections. His voice is big, it's raspy, and man, his vocals, it's so broad, and the characters that he can produce, it's amazing. But he says this is the truest of the true of who he is, this moment in time. I'm glad we had this conversation. Made me feel good as a songwriter, as a human being. Took my mind off things too. But hope you guys enjoy this conversation. I Am Now. It's out. Go listen to it. Go give him a follow at Brett James Songs. And people, take care of one another. But here we go. I'm done. All right, here's Brett getting to know one another.
How you holding up with all this stuff?
Dude,
crazy, huh?
I know, right? Well, that's exactly what I was about to ask you. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm living my best slob life. That's kind of what I'm telling people.
Your best slob life? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
What's else to do but be a slob? Hang out, never get out of the sweatpants all day. I'm doing that myself.
yeah, that's why I kind of transitioned to be a songwriter than like a touring guy, because I can just sit at home, be naked, eat Cheetos, play video games, go write a song, do it all
There you
over
go.
again.
It's not a bad life. I recommend it. It's good work if you can get it, you know?
Yeah, if you can get it. That's my
Are you a
problem.
songwriter? I didn't know you were a songwriter.
Yeah, I try for whatever that's worth. I mean, I feel like if you listen to my songs, like, you'd probably laugh or just think, go back out on the road.
What were you doing out on the road?
I was a touring guy. Well, I don't know. My career is a little broad. From forming bands, doing kind of the artist thing, and then just doing the gun for hire thing. I did sessions for a while, and then this kind of took off. And now I guess I just realized I'm a better talker, and talk to other people and make grown men cry and record those conversations. And here we are.
There you go. So I should get the tissues out, like you're telling me?
What's that? Sorry.
I should get the Kleenex out? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, if you have any. I mean...
No, I don't.
Okay.
They're out of supply. There's none in stores. You can't get anything.
Yeah, that's the worst thing about my house. We're so redneck, like us personally. We always just blew our nose on toilet paper. Now I'm catching the kid, like he's blowing his nose on toilet paper, and he's basically like snotting away American currency right now. And so we're just kind of like,
right.
Bro, stop. Go get a Kleenex. Like, don't get any more.
Right.
We don't know when the
That's
next batch is coming.
That is money. You're right. It is our new currency.
Yeah. Well, okay. How are you guys holding up? Everything well? Going good in your life?
Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. We're just already tired of it. But it is what it is. What are you gonna do? You just kind of do your thing.
I know.
I get a little more work done around at the studio, which I guess is good in my home studio. That's about all I got to do. I'm doing Skype rights, which is new. I've never done those before, really, ever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been a thing.
I'm not
Zoom,
a fan.
Is a big thing. I'm pretty sure Zoom is behind coronavirus because I never heard of Zoom 2 weeks ago, and now I use it every day apparently. I don't love them either. I don't love them. They're easier with a two-way, but if you get a three-way involved, they get pretty tricky.
Well, it's just all the delays and the lag, and you're tossing out ideas, and the tech can't keep up. And I don't know. I like human connectivity, I guess, too.
I am with you. I guess the beat's not writing a song, but it's still not ideal at all.
No.
And my kids are like, all my kids are in, online school, and that's the way they do their class. They'll have like 25 people on Zoom,
Yeah, right.
And it's nuts. I don't know that's got to be just chaotic for the teachers.
Yeah,
all the people involved.
I agree. The wife is doing online school for a doctorate. I mean, that's how crazy life is right now in the 21st century.
Wow.
You can get a doctorate online. Used to be that
Right.
used to be a joke. Phoenix University doctorate from online. But now you can get one from Baylor. So that's what she's doing.
Wow. What she's doing at Baylor in Waco?
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. That's where I went to college, and I actually have two sons at Baylor in Waco. Two of those kids I was talking about are doing online school at Baylor.
Oh, yeah? Well, look at that. Small world. Oh,
good spot. What's she getting her doctorate in?
Something in education. What do I know?
I got you.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's a PhD, baby. You have to call her doctor the rest of her life, though. You know that.
Dude, that's where I'm at. Well, I'm already used to calling her Dr. Harrington, but the thing is, like, that's security in my head.
Right. Exactly. Not a bad thing.
No.
They got to pay her more. I know that. I know they got to pay her more. She's got the PhD behind her, so that's good.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. I'm just thinking I'm golden. I can keep doing my creative thing. I don't mind being the big breadwinner. Call me a 21st century elder millennial, but I'm okay with it.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, dude. Well, that's what they say behind every songwriter. There's a wife with a real job.
Dude, sugar mama to the upteenth percent. That's where I'm at.
Good for you, bud. Good for you.
No, wait.
Run with it.
I know, dude. That's where I'm at. But wait, you went to Waco, but you're from.
I did.
Aren't you from Oklahoma or?
I grew up in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
I was born in Missouri. I think I lived in Missouri till I was little, and then we moved to Oklahoma when I was like 7. Grew up in Oklahoma, mainly Oklahoma City and a small town in Oklahoma. And then went to college at Baylor for 4 years. Went to medical school back in Oklahoma for 3 years, and ended up doing this. So, go figure.
I ended up doing this. I lived in Oklahoma. Well, okay, I guess the big thing right now, and it's clickbait worthy. I mean, like Joe Exotic, GW Zoo. Did you grow up around any of that? Because that was around Norman, which I know that's somewhat in between Oklahoma City. Where exactly where you're from in Oklahoma?
Well, I'm from Moore, which is just north of Norman. He's out in Wynnewood, which is a little different part of the state. Yeah, but that whole thing, dude.
Dude,
Come
insane, right? Well, you grew up with
Yeah.
this. I mean, a little bit, right? Did you like
You
see
know,
it around?
I can relate a little bit. Not from really Oklahoma City, but when I lived in a little town called Cordell, Oklahoma.
Oh, dude, I
Out
know where you're
western
at.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Do you really?
I do. I'm from southern Arkansas, and so my dad was in forestry, and we had to go to Oklahoma all the time. And so I know exactly where you're at.
Wow, that's crazy. Nobody knows where Cordell is.
Yeah.
You're the only one, and you and Scott Hendricks. He's from Clinton, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But
Not even Oklahomans know that these exist.
No, they don't. They have no idea where these places are.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did see a little. You know, I can admit that. Growing up, my dad took me to a cockfight. Out in the middle of in a barn somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, and that kind of stuff. So I've seen a little bit of that Joe Exotic crazy. Man, that thing, he blew the lid off crazy, that stuff, It's just hard to imagine.
It's a whole new level of crazy. But to me, like growing up around that area, it's just kind of like, well, that's just the kind of way it was. People were a little bit crazy.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
There was a guy in my town, he owned a lion or a tiger or one of those big cats. And
Really?
Yeah, and he used to put a saddle on it. Like he would ride it around. Like it was He-Man or something.
What town in Arkansas?
Little town, Ashdown.
Ashdowd?
Yeah, down, like going down.
Okay, I got you. How long have you been in Nashville?
Man, I've been coming in and out since I was 15. But
okay,
yeah, I'm 35 now, but we've only lived here for like 10.
Okay. Well, it's long enough for it to be home, though. And you saw it before the crazy changes, at least. You were here before the last 5 years.
Oh, dude, you feel my pain. And I feel like when I say this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The only thing to do in Nashville, 15 years ago, was to go eat at the Shoney's. Like there was just Shoney's.
That's about true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we turned into a city really quick, didn't we? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, I like it, but I don't at the same time.
Yeah.
For what that's worth.
I'm with you. I'm one of those. There are pros and cons to it. I really hate the traffic. I like having good restaurants to choose from, but I'm not really crazy about the fact. I'm not really crazy about our downtown being mini Vegas, but it is what it is.
No, and
it supports a lot of people, so you can't really argue with it too much.
Yeah, you can't argue with progress, especially when it helps out a lot of people. But I guess the issue is just crime. That's a big thing, obviously, and I don't know. Just the city is different. It's a lot dirtier now. It is Las Vegas. You're 100% right. It's turning into a sleazy redneck Vegas.
It's got definitely elements of that, no question about it. So. It's just the way things are, the way of the world.
I guess so. All right, so you got to rewind for me for a second. You kind of dropped this nugget, like in passing, like you went to med school, like in Oklahoma, right, or in Baylor.
I did go to med school at the University of Oklahoma. It's a really long story, but I went to Baylor undergrad, and then I went to 2 years of med school, and I came out to Nashville on my spring break of my sophomore year because I'd cut some demos and had a manager who liked what I was writing while I was in medical school, right? And my third day in Nashville, I got offered a record deal by, at the time, the best record company in Nashville, Arista Records.
Oh, dude, that was the thing, right? I mean, that was the label that you wanted to do. But the thing that's crazy, is it crazy in my imagination that you got basically signed on a record deal on your third day? I mean, were they just tossing out record deals?
They weren't. They weren't. It wasn't quite that like that, but it was easier for sure then, I think. Nashville, that was really an explosive time in Nashville. And so it wasn't like that, but it was a whole lot easier to get a publishing deal, I'll tell you that. There was just a lot more people involved, a lot more. I mean, I know there were over 1,000 full-time country songwriters back,
Oh, yeah.
And so yeah, it was pretty crazy. I got offered a rec deal, like I said, my third day, and he just said, if you move here, I'll give you a rec deal. It was what he told me. And so, at the end of my sophomore year in med school, I finished that year, took my board exam, and the next day I jumped in a 1982 Datsun Maxima and drove to Nashville. And I didn't call Tim DuBois, the head of the label, for 9 months after I moved here because I knew I wasn't ready to have a record deal. You know, so I did what everybody does. I waited tables at Midtown Cafe and, you know, started playing open mics and tried to meet as many people as I could and that kind of stuff. And I kind of got my own publishing deal out of doing that in a few months. And then once I had some demos I thought were ready to play for Tim, I called him again and it was kind of like, hey, man, I know it's been a year, but, you know, if you still remember who I am, I sat in your office about a year ago and you said, you gave me your home number and said, you know, if I move here, you give me a deal. And he said, well, yeah, I remember you. Come on in, you know. So
oh wow,
I came in and played him some songs, and the next thing I had to do was showcase for the whole record label. So it was when the Wild Horse Saloon opened. I think it was the first week the Wild Horse was open. You know.
Yeah, right.
I went down there in my band. We played like a week's worth of gigs, like 5-hour gigs. You know, getting ready. You know, and then the last night of my week, I invited the record label down. I got my first record deal officially backstage at Wild Horse in 1993.
Wow.
It's been a minute, huh?
Dude, no kidding. What a crazy. It is. It's a crazy wild ride. I mean, I've seen the back horse of Wild Horse Saloon, and it's crazy that $1 million deals are going back there besides Aaron Lewis snorting cocaine.
Yes, there's been a lot of that back there, too.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, so anyway, that was the first deal in 1993 backstage of the Wild Horse, and then I proceeded to fail miserably as a recording artist for the next 7 years.
Nah, don't say that. Don't say that.
Well, I did. I mean, pretty much I did. And I went to, the long story is I went back to medical school for a year when I was 30, 7 years later. Isn't that something?
All right, answer this in my imagination, like, because I mean, I feel that you are a songwriter and like the career has like proven that. But then like you moved to town specifically, like you wanted to do the artist thing. Like you wanted to be X artist on the big TV screen.
Sure.
That was the goal.
I mean, that was the goal. I mean, I didn't even know songwriting existed as a job until I moved to Nashville. You know, I mean, I don't think most people do. Yeah, no. I didn't even know there was a gig called being a songwriter. So yeah, I mean, you know, I wanted to be Garth Brooks just like everybody else in 1992. You know, and so I moved to town, and you know, a lot of people, some people thought I was going to be Garth Brooks, and I signed a big record deal, a big publishing deal, and you know, had everybody, you know, kind of the right team and all that good stuff, and it just didn't work. And so, you know, I spent 7 years making a decent living, making a great living for a few years in my 20s off the publishing deals. But, you know, after being here from I guess it wasn't that long. I guess it was 5 years, 93 to 98 or 9. I guess it was 99, 6 years. I was basically in town and on a record label. And after not working, you know, for 6 years and I lost my record deal and had my publishing deal cut by 2/3, and I had 2 little babies, you know, under 2. And I was like, I need to figure out a way to feed these kids, you know. I kind of had
right.
I think if it was a panic attack, it's the only one I've ever had, but I think I might have had a panic attack in a Target one day on White Bridge Road, and I was kind of looking at a pair of, you know, baby shoes, and they were like $15, and I was like, man, those would sure look cute on one of my boys, but I can't afford them, you know?
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, I can't live like this. I got to figure out something else to do. So I literally snail mailed the dean of the medical school, you know, and cause all I'd ever done was basically go to school and write songs, you know, and snail mailed her, said, hey, you're only supposed to get a year off of med school, and I've been out for 7. Is there any chance you'll let me back in? And, you know, I got a letter back from her. I said, yeah, you had good grades and I can pull some strings, you know, to get you back in, but you're going to have to repeat your sophomore year because a lot, you know, things change in medicine over 7 years. And I was like, I'm fine with that. So I literally went back and did the sophomore year of medical school again when I was 30, which was totally bizarre because it was, you know, same classrooms, a lot of the same professors, you know, taking the same classes.
Yeah.
And it's been 7 years. And I started, the first time I went, I was like the youngest kid in the class. Second time I went, I was like the old guy, you know.
Well, what are you doing here? Are you auditing? No, I'm taking the class.
No, I did this before. Yeah, I did this before. I'm back. It was really it was a bizarre thing, but I did that year of med school. And well, long story short is I went to, you know, I'd only had 2 outside cuts in those 7 years prior to 1999, you know.
Okay, so sometime between your record in 95, like Brett James, and then going back to school, you had 2 outside cuts. What were those?
Yeah. One was a Kenny Chesney cut. It was called Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. Now that I can't believe I remember that title. Wow. And then I don't even remember who the other cut was on. Like, you know, it was somebody small. But, you know, so I really hadn't had any real success at all. And you know, I was kind of sort of giving up my dream, and I was kind of fine with it, just because, to be honest with you, you know, I mean, it sounds like you got kids. If you got kids, it becomes all about feeding them, not about your crazy dream of being Garth Brooks at some point. You know,
it's
me,
a weird mind shift in your head of
the
priorities.
realization of that. It's like, yeah, it's like, holy cow, this is real, and I'd like to be able for my kids to be able to go to college someday. So how do I do that? You know, and so I was totally fine with, you know, okay, I'd had a real fair shot, so, you know, more than a fair shot, and it had not worked out.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I always have this impression in my head, like, and maybe I'm the kind of like T-ball coach, like everybody deserves a ribbon. I don't know, but when I see, like, in 95, you released like your record with Arista, and it's charted, like female bonding, like literally charted on U.S. country. And I mean, it broke top 100, you know, and I think in your eyes and a bunch of pros' eyes, like, unless it's top 10, it's almost like a waste of time. But dude, it broke top 100 out of like millions of songs. It's just kind of like you did it. Like you are being recognized of this is where it's played and how many times it's played across America. So Arista just didn't think it was worth their time eventually.
I think that was it. I mean, I think they gave it their best shot. I remember off that album, we put out 2 singles, and they spent a lot of money. You know, I mean, you know, $100,000 was a video back then, believe it or not.
Dude,
you know,
I know.
The second single was called If I Could See Love. We went to literally Kauai, Hawaii, and shot a video for that song. You know, and I think they both went to like number 28 on the chart. But this was also an era, you know, this was literally right in the middle of the country music boom. And when I signed with Arista, I think they had only 8 acts at the time. You know, the first guy they signed was Alan Jackson. The next act was Brooks and Dunn. And, you know, and it was Pam Tillis and Black Hawk and Dom and Rio and, you know, Brad Foster, Leroy Cornell. I can't remember who else. But literally all of those 8 acts were sold gold or better.
Yeah, right.
And that was the era. If you didn't sell 500,000 copies of an album, you could get dropped back then.
So
I mean, that's the way, you know.
I mean, their bar was already high because of the acts that they had.
Sure.
I didn't realize I realized how stacked they were, and I knew who Arista is and what they've done and who's worked for them and who's been in and out, but I didn't realize how small it was, which created this, I don't know, this proverbial bar of where you got to be. And I guess maybe that does make sense business-wise when they look at your numbers of like, well, where does this fit?
Right. And what they did kind of on me and on a business level was what turned out to be a mistake. Honestly, they tried to, and because all the labels were kind of doing this too, because it was such a boom time, they created a sub-level, a sub-label, I should say, another label under the Arista moniker called Three Records. And I was the first new artist on this new label. So I kind of wasn't getting the full push. I was getting a different kind of push, you know, and that was a challenging thing too. It seemed like it was going to be a great opportunity, and it turned out to be a little bit of a mistake. My career didn't last very long. It only lasted about 4 years.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than like being a recording artist, and you're there for like 4 years, and you're just kind of like throwing your hands up in the air of, well, what's going on? I mean, I'm here. We have this record out. Are we doing anything? Did it feel kind of like that? Almost like it was just kind of overlooked because you're in this sub-label?
It really didn't feel that way at all, to be honest with you. They worked their butts off. You know, they really did work their butts off. I have to give them full credit. They tried their best, you know, and so it wasn't like I was getting ignored by my record label. They were great people who literally believed 1,000% in me. It just didn't work, and that happened. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, in that time then, it's the thing about, again, it's just a big mystery in my head. Call it time or what it is, but it's like the quantified of a hit. I know when you compare it to Alan Jackson or Black Hawk of the time, it's just kind of like, okay, that's a hit. But then really what quantifies the hit? Is it really like the chart success? Is it album sales? What was the thing in the 90s?
Well, back in the 90s, it really was those two things. It was chart success and album sales, I mean, labels made, amazing money selling records back then, and it was all about selling CDs, and the chart success would turn for them into selling CDs. And so if you weren't having, if you didn't have hits, the sales didn't, because it was such an expensive venture for record labels to really do all that, to physically put copies of everybody's album in Target and Walmart, all that good stuff. And, so in order for them to put all that out there, it was a real thing that if the hits didn't happen, the sales didn't happen, it would be over pretty quick. And, it was one of those deals where, they gave me a fair, Tim is great. Tim Dewaz is like one of my heroes in music business. He literally is, he's like one of my favorite people on earth, right? So, and he gave me literally, it was like, let's regroup, let's try to produce it, let's do all this. It wasn't like, it was just, okay, your single didn't work and you're done. That did happen on my second record. I did sign another deal with Arista later under Joe Galante, who I love as well. But,
yeah, he's been on this thing. What a general. Oh, man.
Oh, he's amazing.
He's
awesome.
awesome.
He's one of my dearest friends. But yeah, it's cut and dry with Joe. Look,
man.
The long and short story of my deal is when I go back, I end up, my songwriting thing blows up while I'm in med school in Oklahoma. I end up, I get 33 cuts in that 9 months while I'm home, and had 5 top 10 singles. It was like, so I'd given up on this dream of being an artist, and kind of given up on my music dream altogether. And all of a sudden I decide I'm going to go study medicine again. And but I still had a publishing deal, and I signed with a young, hungry song plugger named Kelly King, and Mark Bright was the boss.
Oh, wow.
And I was their only writer. And so all of a sudden, really, they had one thing to focus on. It was me. And, so I go out to Oklahoma and still write songs. And one of my best friends in the world and co-writer, Troy Burgess, he was a young 25-year-old kid, and we had just started writing cool stuff. So he would fly out to Oklahoma and stay with me. I'd go to med school all day, and then we'd write songs till 1 a.m, and we'd write 8 songs in a week and come back and demo them at some point in Nashville. And all of a sudden, we got really hot. Troy was being my songwriter that year based on 5 of our singles, and
right.
So all of a sudden we got really hot that way. But that's kind of how that thing happened. So where I was going with that was that I also got offered another record deal by Arista Records, the same record label under a different head, Joe Galante, that year, and did another deal with Arista. When I came after finishing. I finished that year, that third year of med school, and then quit the second time. That was an interesting conversation. I came back to Nashville. So there's sort of my up and down road.
Oh, dude, I love it. I mean, so in a broad stroke, that's what it is. But there's a couple of things I definitely want to highlight because, 98, you go back to med school, and your dad's a doctor, right? Like your parents are like,
and my grandfather. Yeah, sure.
It runs in the family. And so I kind of feel like that's a big deal. You go to med school and then baby boy Brett James quits med school and he wants to be a songwriter. I mean, what was that conversation and even that emotion of it? Was it like kind of a letdown of the family? Was that a thing? I mean, especially doing it twice.
It absolutely was. My dad is one of the best singers I ever heard in my life, right? And my mom has her master's in music, so there was always, we were a very musical family, and my parents were always singing. I grew up in church singing the whole bit, and so my dad was always a little bit of a frustrated, what would have happened kind of guy. He would have been amazing at musical theater or something like that. And so he was more, oh man, if you got something else you could do, go chase your dream. He was more, he was 100%. He was always very supportive and always, just go do your thing, man. We'll figure this out. Don't worry about it. So it was a great thing for from the family perspective. My mom was funny though because she was such a classical music person. She won like the national concerto contest when she was in college. She was an amazing, classical pianist. And so, for the first like bunch of years I did country music, she really wouldn't talk about it. It was kind of like she was not, it was, she really, I love you, but I hate the music kind of thing, And then I started getting lucky with having hits, and all of a sudden she became a big country fan. So that was we turned her around. So
amazing. I love that because I went to classical school. That's more of my background, and I understand that dynamic 100%. It's really like nose up in the air against anything else. Like nothing really has the credibility of what Mozart did 400 years ago.
Absolutely. Nor will it ever, right? Yeah.
Right, yeah. Oh, and I love that she came back around. I just love, got another number one. Okay, I'm turning it around. This is feeling good.
She turned into a super fan. It was great.
Mother's Day keeps getting better and better and better.
Yeah, right. It was that way for her, for sure.
Oh, that's funny. All right, and then, so med school, dropped out twice. But what's interesting when I look at, I don't know, like a world's view of your career and partnerships, Troy Vergas is a name that's like continuously like repeated. And I think something I've always learned, and it's hard to even apply it to my life, is, finding that dude or that partner like in songwriting or creativity, because I feel like in these beginning stages of these 33 songs, like Troy was there with you along the way and for the ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was a very special thing, and still is a great friendship. He lives around the corner from me, and he's just one of the best people I've ever known. But that was, I was 30, and I think he was 23 or 24. From my perspective now, and it really was. We had started to co-write. I had left one publishing company and gone to another one. And he was the intern at the publishing company I left. And when I left, I didn't know he wrote songs. Turns out Pat Higdon was the publisher.
Oh wow!
Pat's a legend.
Yeah.
And I left Pat's publishing company to go to EMI at the time. And I found out later that I didn't even know Troy wrote songs. And I started hearing some, and they were like, "Wow, these are really cool. We should write." And so kind of before I went back to med school, he and I just started writing some, and we started to get a little bit of, like, people were starting to dig what we were doing. It was at the time kind of fresh, And so when I decided to go back to med school, I had to have that conversation. I said, "Hey man, I know we're kind of starting to get a little hot. We haven't had any cuts yet, but people are starting to dig our songs finally. And I know that's happening, but, I've got these kids to feed. So I'm going to go to med school. I'm sorry." And Troy was like, "Dude, I'll just fly out there. No problem." And so that's what he would do. He would fly out for, like 4 days. And honestly, I hadn't sold my house in Nashville. So I was staying with my parents in Oklahoma City. And so he would stay with my parents too. It was like me and Troy and my mom and dad, And I'd go awesome. To med school and get home in the middle of the afternoon. And Troy would go back and we'd go back in my parents' office, this little house in Oklahoma City, and just write, And I remember we wrote like our first big number one together was called "Who I Am." I am Rosemary's granddaughter for Jessica Andrews a bunch of years ago, and we wrote that in my parents' kitchen, and while I was going to med school, and along with a bunch of other good ones. And so I really do owe Troy a lot, because he was willing to kind of make those trips and come out and do the rides and all that kind of stuff. And a big part of it, for me, honestly, creatively. And I think this is something that the younger writers, it could probably help them a little bit. For me, having been in Nashville for 7 years and, been, just trying to dig it out, trying to kind of fit into the round peg in the square hole, or trying to, being on Music Row all the time and kind of hearing what everybody's looking for, and hearing, here's what I've got to try to write today, or I'm not going to make a living kind of thing. A lot of people get in that headset in Nashville songwriting. And for me, it was like I went back to med school and I was in Oklahoma, and I just felt like I was as far away from this business as I could possibly be. And so our attitude and my attitude became, screw it, man. I'm going to write what I think is cool, you know, and let the chips fall where they may. I'm going to do another job anyway. I'm going to go be a doctor. You know, my music career is just, you know, it's for fun now. So I'm going to have fun writing music that I really like. And for me and for Troy and I, you know, that's when things really started popping, because we were writing what we thought was cool, and other people did too. And so I think there's a real freedom sometimes in getting out of the music business headspace or the Nashville headspace or any kind of business headspace, and just write what you love.
Yeah, I know I definitely fall in that trap all the time, because I've spent a year just kind of writing by myself to figure out like what I do, like what I know I can do or bring to the table when I start doing more co-writes and stuff. But I do fall in the trap that, oh, well, let's do this kind of thing, a Carrie Underwood kind of thing, or Billy Ray Cyrus is hot right now. Like, what would be the thing that he would want to do, you know, in this new age? But it sounds like it also took a little humility factor for you. And then moving back to Oklahoma, you know, I wonder about Mark's opinion, and maybe you even know, because I feel like that's a risk too, like on their part, like when they signed you to their publishing deal.
Mark Bright?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was funny because they, you know, they were just starting a publishing company. So Mark kind of, you know, looked around to see who his first he wanted to sign was going to be. And honestly, I had been, I guess I'd been dropped by EMI by then. And I was shopping. I was looking, and I had several publishing companies turn me down, you know, just flat out. And I was like, uh-oh. And that's part of why I was going back to medical school, because, you know, it just didn't look good for me in Nashville. And kind of out of the blue, Mark Bright called me and says, you know, we have a meeting, and he signed me, you know. And he signed me to a great deal. It was a very fair deal. But it was about a month after Mark signs me that I had that panic attack in Target. Decided I'm going to go back to med school. So I got to take Mark to a tough breakfast and have this conversation. I remember went to Pancake Pantry, and we sat there, and I said, I know I'm your only writer. I know you just signed me a month ago. But here's what's going on. You know, I've got 2 little kids, and I'm worried about feeding them. I've gotten back in med school, and I'm going to go do that. You know, thinking he would be furious, or thinking he would be, you know, feel however he would feel. And Mark, to his credit, he said, man, I've got a family. I totally get that. You know, that's the most important thing, is feed your kids. But we have a contract, you know, for a year. So when you go to med school, just keep writing songs, see what happens. And that's what we did, you know. And obviously, you know, we had 33 cuts that year.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's like, obviously the hindsight is 2020, or like in your case, 2033. That, I mean, it's like a brilliant move for Mark to kind of keep working with you. You keep doing your thing. Okay, but for Mark, I mean, some of his claim to fame stuff was like working with Black Hawk, and then like much later, Rascal Flatts and stuff. But at this point, I mean, did he do all the work with Black Hawk and everything? And so he was this thing in Nashville of like a quote unquote, you work with Mark Bright, like you will have at least a good track record of success.
Yeah, he was a big shot.
Yeah,
he was definitely a big shot.
So he's a big shot at this time.
And he's been I have to give him credit, or her credit too. He hired a song plugger that's still in Nashville and still an amazing publisher named Kelly King. And she, you know, and she just loved my song. You know, she genuinely loved my songs. I would play her a song that was a hit, and she'd literally cry and give me a hug and say, "We are going to make this a smash." You know. And when you have that kind of passion out of your song plugger, you know, then it's just so helpful.
Dude,
you know,
what else could you ask for? I mean, that's a champion. That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think that's what every songwriter is looking for, is a real champion, you know, in their publisher and their song plugger. And I certainly had it in both of them. And it was just a fantastic partnership. I was there for, I think, 7 years. I think we ended up having at least 170 cuts together, something like that, over a 70 period of time. You know, it was a great time to be to be writing for me, and a great time to be writing with them. We had a blast together.
Dude, you were hot. I mean, this was like, this is game-changing moment. This is like the turning point in the biopic of Brett James. Like, this is it.
It very much was. That was very
dude.
much was that, dude.
So
Yeah.
the those 30 or 33 songs, like, I mean, they're insane, Brett. Like, these songs, I feel like just bam, 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 just don't happen, right? Like, it's whatever music god sprinkles some country sawdust over you, and then, like, this magic happens, right? It was just something.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it was just like you captured lightning in a bottle, or was it just perfect timing, like, for you in the right headspace?
I think like all things in really music, I think there's a lot of luck involved and a lot of timing, and then obviously hard work. Those are the three things it takes to all of a sudden have some success. And it's got to start with the hard work. You got to be doing the work and writing songs and doing your best. But then it was just kind of a magic time in a sense. One thing that I would say is that at that particular moment in whatever was going on musically in Nashville, it started coming around to what I did better. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I try to think I try to pretend I don't have a real wheelhouse in my writing, because I think I try not to have a style. I think if you have a style, then you stop and go out a few years, and guess what? You go with it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
so my
wow,
goal as a songwriter has always been kind of to be a jack of all trades and try to do, everything. I feel like I've had super country cuts, like you think of the Cody Johnson song I had this year, is Country is a Stomp, but then I've had Nick Jonas and Bon Jovi and, so I try to, like, my goal has always been to try to, like, okay, let me see how many bases I can sort of cover. But what I would say about that period in country music when I started getting lucky was that it kind of became a little bit more pop, and my natural ear, I grew up on pop radio, really, pop and rock and roll. Like I said, there just wasn't. Even though I lived in Western Oklahoma, my parents didn't listen to country music, and most of my friends listened to, AC/DC and Van Halen.
Totally.
It wasn't
Yeah.
country. So I didn't really, have a whole lot of, country ear from growing up. And so I think there was a little bit of a turning point around that period of time, 2000-ish, where, country kind of got a little more poppy, and that kind of helped me a little bit.
Yeah, that's always true. And I feel like I'm just kind of realizing that now, like with the writers and the creatives that are coming up, they put in a little bit of those influences that they grew up with. I think back to I had like Tim McGraw CD, and then right behind it was like Nelly or whatever, the CD case in the truck. And that's why we have a lot more like pop and like hip hop influences in country today, because of my generation, like, grew up with that stuff. And
100%.
And so it's kind of the same
100%,
for you,
yeah.
like with Van Halen and AC/DC. It got a lot more rockin'. Like when I think about Cowboy
Sure.
Casanova, something like that, it's kind of like, oh, well, dude, this is totally what, AC/DC, like just those sounds of these stacked Marshalls, and what Mutt Lange like did before with Shania Twain, bringing this rock thing. It was just a lot more bigger in the 2000s.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right. And it is, that's what's kind of the beauty of music, is it's constantly evolving, but it is, it's constantly based on what the influence of that generation was, I love, one of the greatest thing about my job is that now I'm, the old guy, at 51, but I still get to work with 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, and, even younger sometimes. And what's fun for me is, they grew up on, Jason Aldean, they grew up on, FGL already, believe it or not. FGL's been around 10 years,
Yeah.
And so, that's what they've grown, because, if you look at a 20-year-old now, they were 10 when FGL, when one of these, new acts kind of hit what I could call a newer country act, and yet they've been around long enough that these are heritage artists for the 20-year-olds, and those are their influences, and I think it's pretty cool. So it's, what I try to do is, as the old guy in the room, I try to shut up. I try to listen, because they have the influences, You know what I'm saying? I try to let them lead as much as possible because I can be a lot of things, but I can't be 18. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it really is. You know, and I have a lot to learn from these younger writers, and that's kind of, I think, the best position to take as the old guy in the room.
I'll try to remember that. Just shut up in the writing room, and you still get that 33%. Like, I'm good with that.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. You're right.
Okay, but I mean, there's something to your writing, and maybe it's just the hits in my imagination. But can you rattle off like some of those songs in that time, like these 30 or so songs that you did like in 7 years?
Oh gosh. Well, that was just that one year. I don't remember. You know, I mean, I remember my very first hit on the radio was off "You Won't Be Lonely Now." My first top 10 was for Billy Ray Cyrus, and then in that era there was that "Who I Am" for Jessica Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
There was I remember I had a Lone Star cut in there called "Whiskey," in the top 10 record. They got killed by 9/11. Believe it or not, it's a funny story.
I remember when that
it was
happened.
a happy little pop song, and then 9/11 happened, and everybody we went serious, you know. I'm trying to think. There were what else was in that area? Rascal Flatts. One of their first singles was right in there.
Martina McBride is one. Blessed
was in there. Yeah, I had that on her, and you know, so yeah, it was that kind of era.
What's interesting to me, and maybe in that time, and no doubt you can write a love song. But I feel like there's a pattern in some of those hits, like they're not love songs. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a different kind of love song. You know, especially for like "Who I Am" or even "Blessed." Like if you had to pick apart like those two things, like they're love songs, but they're different. It's not like you're pointing the finger at somebody and saying "I love you." And
sure,
I found that interesting in this shift in country music because I mean there was a lot of stuff still pointing the finger saying "I love you," and those songs still exist today. They're still a thing. But I feel like if there's something like to you and what Troy did, it was almost like you found another way to say love.
Well, maybe, and I think maybe that was a part of that era. Of course, we're kind of coming out of '90s country, which was a lot of story songs. You know,
yeah,
a lot of different kinds of songs. I mean, you know, you look at you look back to that era, and you know, you look at Kenny Chesney, "That's Why I'm Here," which is a song about alcoholism. When you look at, you know, a story song like "Old Red" by Blake Shelton, you know, about a dog.
Right,
you know,
right.
You know, and so those kind of songs we're not getting as much of right now, and I think that, you know, maybe that was just part of kind of being around that culture, that it wasn't all, "Hey baby, you look beautiful. Hey baby, I want to do anything you want me to do." You know, that kind of stuff, which is kind of happening a lot right now. You know.
Yeah, right.
And so I do think maybe there was just a little different. I think we had maybe, you know, some of the colors in the palette that of writing and emotion and styles of writing were just a little different back then. Not better or worse, just a little different. Right?
Yeah. I think it was just, at least in my imagination, a different kind of writing style. And of course, sonically, things changed, especially when we hit like 2000s, because then enter like Carrie Underwood and kind of this, you know, post Mutt Lange, Def Leppard like sound, and the wall of stacked guitars. I mean, I keep going back to like Cowboy Casanova because in my imagination, that wasn't the song or the thing that changed country radio, because she had a hit before that. But Cowboy Casanova was a big one because of Mike Elizondo and just the merger again with, you know, this Dr. Dre world in country. I mean, there's something to that, especially for the growth of country and just things even sonically changing. Sure.
Yeah. I think so. And I think, you know, it's always, you know, that stuff's inevitable. It's going to happen. And that was a fun day writing that, Mike, because, you know, Carrie and I had written together some, of course, but we didn't know Mike Elizondo at the time. And, you know, you just look up a guy on Wikipedia, and I had no idea what to expect. This whole, at that point, you know, most of his resume was Dr. Dre and really hardcore, great hip hop stuff, but hardcore stuff, you know. And then Mike walks in, and he's just the sweetest, face on earth. You know, nobody doesn't love Mike Elizondo, and also just insanely talented on a billion different levels. And anyway, it was just it was a really fun thing for that reason. Mike kind of walked in with a lot of that groove track just laid out for us. You know, Terry and I just kind of top-lined it that day. It was really a really fantastic day.
Yeah, when you approach, especially like in the writing room, and like I can only assume like you have a strength, because I've never like written with you. I mean, like, what would be your thing? Do you feel like you're just a chameleon that you can like take care, because you're a badass singer? Like, your voice has crazy range, and dynamically speaking, like, it could be so many characters in my imagination. But I mean, what do you think like you yourself like bring to the table?
Well, I try to be as much of a chameleon as I can be, you know, because I've done it for so long. I mean, if you know, it's sort of whatever hat. I try to wear whatever hat needs to be worn that day. You know, to be honest with you, if it's more lyrical one day, great. If it's more melody one day, great. You know, what I'm not is a track guy. I've learned that. Now we have, a lot of our co-writes have a track guy in the room. I tried to be that for a little while, and that's not going to happen. I do not have those skills, and I really wish I did, because watching great track guys make tracks in 5 minutes just sound like records blows my mind. But I do not, or will I ever have those skills. But I feel like I'm a pretty strong melody guy and a pretty strong lyric, and that's kind of just where I come from. It, and and hopefully a pretty good teammate in the room. You know, I think that's a really important thing to be as well. You never want to go in and just sit there and listen to me write this song kind of thing. You know, you want to be a good teammate.
That's when it gets hazy, right? Like, you want to be a good either like foundation support for somebody, and then I don't know, if somebody's not spitting out stuff, that's when you got to really step up your game, right? I guess it's just always like a mixed bag of emotions, or you never know what you're walking into, I guess. But
exactly, I used to always say there's kind of I don't know how to put it, but a lead dog and an editor dog. And if there's two writers, there's usually somebody kind of leading the charge, and then there's somebody kind of helping edit and helping guide that charge. And I think that I think both of those roles are equally important. I would say that I used to try to be the lead dog, or used to just naturally be the lead dog in most writes, just because I was probably the loudest singer in the room.
Yeah.
That's usually the way it works. But as like I said, as I grow older, I at least when I'm co-writing, I'm trying to learn to be a better editor, to be to let, especially if I'm working with a young artist that really knows what they want. You know, my job is not to tell them who they are. My job is just kind of to help guide that whatever's going on that day, and hopefully guide it to be better. And so that's, so you try to play all the different roles if you can.
But my thing is like, those different roles, I can't see how you, like being the wizard that you are, can like fulfill those roles. Like, for instance, in my imagination, and you try and fill the gaps, I guess, of like, there's no way I could have wrote When the Sun Comes Down, because I don't like the beach. I can imagine that I like writing for something for the idea of a Kenny Chesney kind of thing. And then also, like, if you did like a Rodney Atkins kind of thing, that's just kind of like, oh, I love America, this kind of thing. I don't know if I have that like vocabulary or like authenticity or that thing to make that song so pro. And then like your next session, you're doing something for Leona Lewis, like this pop driven thing, or something for like Backstreet Boys or Daniel Bradbury. And then you can also walk in a room and do something a little rockin' with Jason Aldean. Like it's like your vocabulary, or like how to speak these different languages, and fuck, man, especially like throwing in Pat Green, that's ultra like Texas, middle finger like to everything else. Like, I just feel like your vocabulary as a songwriter, or even stylistically, you just know how to speak multiple languages.
Well, thank you. That's very flattering. I think that's always been my goal, and if I have a strength that for writing lots of different styles, if I have a strength, it's that I'm lucky in that my voice can be a little bit of a mimicker. You know, if I can, I feel like I'm pretty good. If I understand what an artist does melodically and how they sing, I can kind of put myself into that character a little bit, and then sort of try to play that role. And,
it's a little bit
I've
method acting, right? Like you
exactly.
Oh,
I've always
okay.
said that for me, songwriting is a lot like acting, especially when you're trying to write for a certain artist that you feel like you have a grip on what they might want to say. If you can kind of put myself in their shoes, you know, then and even vocally kind of find the space that they like to work in. That's always been a little bit helpful for me to kind of, you know, as a place to work from.
Yeah, okay. Because like in this season of my life, I'm doing some like script writing and stuff. And so I found that like very helpful in a way that I can start thinking in different characters, like how they would approach a situation, how they would speak the part, whatever.
Sure.
But then I've never thought about the angle of actually being that being the Daniel Day-Lewis of songwriting, of like being that artist and even imitating them, like whatever that means, like vocally and melodically. That's just a different way that I've never thought about it.
Well, that's sort of, you know, whether consciously or unconsciously I've ever done it, but I think that's part of what I do. A lot of it's unconscious, you know. It's just like we're trying to write a hit for Kenny Chesney today, you know. So try to kind of put yourself in what would Kenny try to say as I think about, you know, or whoever. And so yeah, I think that's part of, certainly been part of my process over the years.
Yeah, I also love like part of your like thing like of songwriting and producing, because the example I'm going to bring up is Kip Moore's like Beer Money and Something About a Truck. Like there's there's something so Springsteen-ish that you do, especially like on that record with Kip, that I mean, for a season, for me, it was just kind of like, well, let's just throw some like lyric spaghetti on the wall and see if we can make it an anthem. And that's what Beer Money is to me, because when you at least think of the idea of beer money, it's hard to take that serious, but somehow you made it into this crazy anthem that's just kind of like, well, shit, that's genius.
Well, I didn't write it. I wish I had written Beer
know.
Money, but I did produce it. But still, you know, Kip laid all that out, man. Kip had such a vision for what he wanted to do, kind of, you know, from the start, that it was, you know, it was just hang on and try to make it great. And we had so much fun making that.
But even as a producer and being the songwriter that you are, like when you heard something like Beer Money, I mean, was it kind of a joke in your head? And then like you made it into this anthemic thing of what it is?
Not really, man. The demo, I don't even remember who demoed that song. I will tell you that I remember the day I heard Beer Money, we were like, you know, Kip just turned in lots and lots of songs back then. You know, he was writing. And I was his publisher, of course, as well. And so, you know, my guy that runs my publishing company, Nate Lowry, called me, goes, man, you know, and kind of Kip was a writer back then, especially where every, you know, the song of the day was the greatest song ever. You know what I'm saying? It didn't matter, you know. And so we kind of, he cried wolf a few times. Let's put it that way. You know, he'd be like, it's the greatest song ever. And we were like, maybe not, you know. But I remember Nate said, and we were just about to, I think we thought we were finished with that record even. And Nate said, man, Kip brought something in just now that you got to hear, man. That, you know, he says it's the best song ever. I don't know, but let's come over and listen, you know.
How many times have you heard that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And sure enough, I went back to the office and sat there with Nate and Kip, and we're like, yeah, I think that's the best song. I just think I was like, dude, that's just the number one hit right there. And
oh man!
So we were over the moon about that one. And I don't remember who did the demo, but I remember it had all that stuff in it. We just kind of made it hopefully bigger and better when we cut the record. But it was right down the line. I can't remember who he wrote Beer Money with. It might have been Troy Burgess, Blair Daly.
I think it was Troy. I think when I was looking at credits and stuff, it could have been.
I think Troy's on that one. Yeah. So Troy Burgess comes around again, doesn't he?
Dude, that dude is so stacked too. But man, like your career and like the way that you approach songs are just so interesting to me, because I feel like there's maybe no bad idea, right? Because I remember listening to like your story of like When the Sun Goes Down. Like the foundation of that song was something in your head that was just so silly, but then honestly, you kind of never know where it lands or where it goes.
Sure. Yeah, I think until you explore an idea, you don't know whether it's, I think you got to flush it out. If you think you have a seed of something, flush it out and see what's there, really, the best example I have of that is Jesus Take the Wheel. And that was not my song idea. That was Gordy Sanson's song idea. But when he said that title in the room, it was, he said it, I've got this title, When Jesus Takes the Wheel or something. Yeah, I think is what it was. And, I was like, my initial thought was kind of, I think I laughed, I just thought, well, we got Jesus driving a car in a robe. Is he driving, what, is he going to be driving a Toyota? Is he driving a
Or his hands sanitized when he takes the wheel? I mean,
exactly, all this stuff. And,
yeah.
And I thought, well, that seemed like a silly idea for a song. And we went on to other ideas that day. It was Hillary Lindsey and Gordy Sampson and I, and we moved on to 5 or 6 other different ideas, and fortunately we came back to that one. And once we fleshed it out, it became a pretty cool thing. So you never know, right? Until you take a swing.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of takes those filters, right? Because that's my issue of the thing of, is this song worth spending time on? And then, if everybody kind of kept on that same path of Jesus Take the Wheel, it wouldn't be what it is today or what it was. But I guess it's just, when do you know when that cutoff is? Like when it's just like, it's not worth it. This is pretty dumb.
I think people don't do that enough in songwriting sessions. I think people, it's like people get on a train. I've done it a million times. You get on a train and then you realize your verse portion, and it's not going to be great. It's going to be what it is, but you're already 2 or 3 hours in, so you might as well write the second verse and keep going,
Yeah.
As opposed to, hey, let's just put the brakes on. This isn't going to be a smash. This is going to be a good song. We finish today, we'll be happy, and we'll have written a good song today. But guess what? The world there's a bazillion good songs sitting on shelves all over Nashville that are never going to get recorded. And so unless we stop here and start on something that might turn into an incredible song, then we've wasted our day. And I'm very guilty of it myself. A lot of times you get 2 or 3 hours into a songwriting session and you fleshed out that idea, and you're a pro songwriter. It's going to be a good song. It's going to all add up and it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be magic. And so why don't we just stop right now and try to write magic? And so I think that's something I'm very guilty of, which is you're already down this road. Let's just finish it up, call it a day. Instead of, what if we just throw that out and start from scratch,
Yeah, I have a hard problem letting go of things, because I feel like if it was there, maybe it was there for a reason, but it could be,
right.
I don't know, rehashed for something else. It could be part of a even better idea, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I always say that, where you start, determines a good part of where you're going to end up. If you start with an average idea, you're probably not going to get an amazing song out of it, and so and you can also ruin an amazing idea pretty easily.
My story of my life.
Challenging. So you never know, right?
Right. Oh wow, that's crazy. All right, so sometime in this point, before or after like all these amazing hits, you decided to come back as an artist. You want to put on those artist pants again, and like I
am doing that now.
I know,
I'm doing
bro.
that now.
Yeah, so between you did it a couple times. I mean, there's Chasing Amy. There's that season of doing that, and you're doing it
right.
again
That
now.
was my second deal on Arista. That was 2000. So that's been 20 years ago. I put that one single out, and that was funny. The day it lost its bullet, I got a call from Joe Galante saying, "Hey, you done?" I was like, "Okay." The good news for me was I had When the Sun Goes Down and recorded for my record. So I want that. That seems like cool.
Nice.
So it worked. That worked out fine. But it's for me it was this. I turned 50 a year and a half ago now, and literally 50th birthday is kind of a big deal. I'm an old guy, and I don't feel old. I feel like I'm 20, but you kind of take stock, and I really did kind of have a little take stock moment on my 50th birthday, and I was kind of like, what, I've been really lucky in the music business. I've been so blessed to have had a bunch of hits and work with amazing people, and I still enjoy that very much. But I was sort of like, at some point you go, what do I want to do? What do I want to spend my time on, going forward? And I kind of, really had this almost just moment of like, I want to spend at least part of my musical life making music that only I make, that only I sing, that I love. Period.
Yeah.
And hoping other people love it, but if they don't, that's fine. And doing the music that I love just because I love it, and I love to write and sing. I mean, I didn't, because I grew up a singer, right, first, and I came to Nashville to try to be a singer. I didn't, the idea of becoming a professional musician was not so I could sit in a room with another person or two, write a song that day, and never see it again, Send it out to the world, and hopefully some other artist sings it. And it's great to see other artists sing your songs. Trust me, that's the most amazing thing ever, and I'm very blessed to have gotten to do that, and hopefully I'll get to do that more. But there's a shared experience when you sing your song for people and they respond. There's something to be said, for playing music live for people, and I miss that, and I enjoy it. And it's not because it's not because of ego reasons, it's not because of financial reasons. It's literally just because I like to play music for people in a room, in the right circumstances. And I like to make music I really love. And so that's what I'm trying to do, at least, like I said, I'm not going to put my day job. I'm not going to quit writing for other people, and hopefully they'll let me, but, so what I did is, the day after I turned 50, I literally cleared my calendar for the next 2 weeks and just sat on my couch with no agenda and no genre, not trying to write hits for any certain kind of radio. I just wanted to, what do I sound like? Like I said, I've got a lot of different voices. I know, what is my most natural voice, my most natural place, and what's the kind of music I want to make? And I think for the first time in my life, I landed on it, and it's going to be ever changing a little bit too, but it's the most fun. I'll tell you that it's the most fun I've ever had writing songs. Is sitting there just by myself and making shit up just because I like it.
Yeah,
and just because it feels right, and I'm not trying to, create a certain thing for a certain genre, for a certain whatever. I'm just trying to make music I love.
Yeah.
And using the influences I have and the voice that I have and the instrument that I have to make. It's just a blast.
Yeah, right.
I'm sitting in my studio right now. I've been working on new music for that the last 3 days, and I'm just having so much fun.
It kind of sounds like you're revisiting that med student thing again of like, well, I'm not going to do the thing that I'm kind of putting this square peg in a round hole. I'm just going to figure out who I am and do that. And there's a lot of freedom in that. And that's kind of what I'm hearing, especially clearing the calendar,
Absolutely.
Sitting on the couch and kind of
what's it feel like to be a 16-year-old kid just making music up because you love music, right? I mean, that's sort of where we all start, hopefully, and that's kind of what I'm trying to tap into again. And like I said, I'm just having a blast. Just first time, put my first EP out Friday, which is really exciting, and working with a record label out in Los Angeles. They're fantastic to work with, and they've been super supportive. And so anyway, it's just been it's so far so it's been a really, really great thing, and just having fun making music. I dig.
Yeah, but with you being like who you are, that, and especially when I hear songwriters like pro songwriters like yourself or like Lori McKenna, there is a reason why like you choose like these 4 or 5 songs, out of, I don't know, like how many do you think that you probably wrote with this idea of an EP?
I think I started with, right now I'm probably up to 20-ish,
Yeah.
20-ish, I started, I think I wrote 15. I tracked the whole album. I done 11 initially. And the first batch of, others to come. So we put out a first EP, and then there'll be another one coming in June, I think.
Yeah. But there's a reason why you choose these.
Yeah, there is. Put Out True Believer was the first one we put out, and that's a song that is very unlike the rest of the project. The rest of the project was all, horns and soul sisters. It's what I would call, my music is called what I would call Nashville soul. It's very much a soul record. It's horns and, all that good stuff. And so we put out True Believer first, which was different, but people were just drawn to that song. And it's a song I wrote with my daughter that ended up being an acoustic guitar with a symphony behind it.
Right.
So we put it out first just because that's the one that they were drawn to, and I love the song. And then now we have the first one going to it's going to AAA radio. It's called I Am Now. And that just went to radio on actually day before yesterday, and it was on most added list, which made me happy.
Oh shit, that's
one
amazing!
Of most added AAA songs, yeah. So that was kind of fun.
That's huge. Yeah. That's gotta make you feel warm and fuzzy. I mean, especially all these years, Arista and all these things, and then success, validation.
Well, I wouldn't call it validation quite yet, but a few stations are playing it, so hopefully we can get some more.
My words to God's ear.
Yeah, exactly. Your lips to God's ear, my friend. That would be great. But whatever happens, I'll be happy with it, just because I'm proud of it. I'm proud of music, And I love getting to make it. My whole goal is to have enough success it makes sense to keep making it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the whole goal. Is I'm having so much fun making it. I just want to keep getting to do it. So hopefully it'll have enough success to let me keep making more.
But again, it's no pressure, right? I mean, this is like truly like the version of who you are and like kind of everything up into life of what this is.
Yeah, I think, and that's hard. It's hard not to put pressure on myself or expectations or, all that kind of stuff. You kind of have to fight your demons a little bit with that stuff because, you don't want to have expectations, but it's different putting out your own music than it is, putting out songs you've written for other people or, because, you got your name on it and you're kind of saying, hey, this is me musically, and there's a little, it's scary, but in all art is scary if you do it right. So, you got to get past that.
Yeah, that is a scary because, like, especially you as a songwriter, like you pick these songs because they're the most you, and put that out in the world in this vulnerability thing where people could shit on it or they could love it. That's
exactly right,
dude. It's
a vulnerability.
Oh, it's terrifying. So are you saying like you almost don't get over it? Like even though like you're 50 and you're seasoned vet and you're amazing at what you do, you still have these fears?
Oh, of course.
That's crazy. Oh, that's crazy.
I don't think anybody ever gets over it, man.
Oh, that's not what I wanted to hear, Brett, at all.
No, man. I had a long talk, and it was a great talk with, I'm blanking on his name, but this super successful pop songwriter from Los Angeles came out, and I was writing with him and Carrie Underwood, right? And, I still get nervous for co-writes with big stars and big writers. I just still do. And we all sat in there and we spent our first half hour talking about imposter syndrome and how we all feel the same way. We all feel, successful. I've been pretty lucky, and he's a superstar writer, and you got a superstar artist sitting there, and we all feel the same way walking in. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing today. I hope they don't figure me out.
Yeah.
And I think I just don't think it really ever goes away with it. But I mean, and I think that's probably healthy, man. It's like, you hear great athletes say they still get nervous before a game. I think that's healthy for. It's a good kind of healthy tension, hopefully at least.
Yeah, that is the thing. I like to imagine it was like Ryan Tedder or somebody, and you're just hanging out, and everybody's nervous in front of everybody. It's Carrie Underwood, you, and Ryan Tedder or somebody. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I wish I could think of who it was. But
no worries.
It was somebody of that level. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially, I always have. This really isn't like a question answer thing, but it's mostly self-interest, I guess. That do you ever get scared of like running out of ideas? I mean, you've done it for so long, and you have this well of songs that I know that we'll never ever hear, and we hear like these ones that are out in the world. But do you ever have this thing of like, what if I just have nothing else to say? Is that a thing in your mind?
Well, it's not a thing, but if I'm being truly honest, and I'm going to be real honest about this, that you do, having done it for, really 30 years now, right?
Mm.
And having written, I don't know, over 3,500 songs. I don't know how many, but a lot, It is hard to sit in a room and have a co-writer or me or the other writer throw out an idea that you kind of haven't heard, right?
Right, yeah.
That's just true. I mean, there's only so many ways to spell love. There's only so many ways to say certain things. And when the goal it becomes is to try to say it in a different way. And even 30 years ago when I was doing it, there were writers that had been doing it for 30 years then, and they'd heard everything I spit out too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So really, we're all working with this pile of creative ideas that, there's the famous saying, it's all been done. It really kind of has all been done. Our job is now to do it different and better, or change enough of it to make you think about it in a different way. And then when somebody does, that's what's so amazing, when somebody really does probably hit something that is, unique and fresh and that nobody's really heard before. I'm trying to think of an example. I would say maybe Lizzo's this year, a couple of her things. Or I would use All About That Bass by Meghan Trainor as an example. Somebody finally puts out, I'd not heard that concept used on All About That Bass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when somebody does say something that truly original and fresh, it usually goes nuts, But what happens is, as unique titles get written, the more they're written, you can rewrite some titles, but you can't rewrite Friends in Low Place. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's kind of where the challenge becomes, as the more of those get written, it's just a little tougher to find something that's brand new and fresh. But that's kind of, I guess I never worry about running out, but it's the challenge is, I think the fun part is to try to come up with something that nobody's heard before.
Yeah.
And that's a daily challenge,
Yeah, that is, man. Dude, thank you so much for doing this and hanging out.
My pleasure, my friend. Thanks for having me. Great talking with you.
Oh, dude, I hope it was. I hope it was at least a little enjoyable, because a human interaction, literally, like, everybody I've talked to is just kind of like, I am not doing shit all right now. So this is like the highlight of my day.
No, that's the truth. Nobody's doing anything. Everybody needs somebody to talk to. So I enjoyed it very much, Brandon. Thanks again, man. Really fun.
That's it, folks. That was Brett James. Give him a follow at Brett James Songs. And, of course, go listen to the EP I Am Now. It's leading up to that Biggie Big record. Heard him talk about it here first. Maybe we'll get him back, have a little chat before then. But that was writer, producer, publisher Brett James. If you made it to this point, you don't know who was talking. Why are you starting here? But anyway, this is where we're at. I'm Brandon. It's my podcast you've been listening to. Again, you made it this far. Why are you listening to this just now? But at SMI Podcast, smipodcast.com is how you can get a hold of us. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think. We're about to take that next big step in the podcasting space. We're already a top 10 music interview situation, but about to make some other big jumps here pretty soon. Thanks, guys, for sticking around, taking the ride with us for this long. We've been going at it for a long time. You guys have been awesome. I hope you take care of yourself more than anything, all right? Don't be stupid. Be smart. One of those things you can be smart with. You can share this episode. That's all I ever ask. If you enjoyed this episode, you thought it was pretty gnarly, Brett James just talking about his life, had some little pointers, dropping some little wisdom nuggets along the goose trail there, just share it with a bud. Share it with a friend. That'd make my little heart go pitter-patter. I hope everybody's doing well again out there. Take care of yourself. Don't be stupid. Cover up. Do the face mask thing. Love one another. Be gentle. Be nice. Be kind. I think that's it. All right. See you guys pretty soon. Got an episode coming out real soon. All right. Happy surviving out there, everybody. See you next time.